Hello and welcome to the Fighting Spirit Podcast. As always, I'm Jason and here to bring us the retrospective for Felder versus Dos Anjos and the look ahead to Figueiredo versus Perez. But first we got to go over a little bit of housekeeping here. We had kind of a rough night last week, or just this Saturday really. Went 3-6, 33% accurate, not good at all, but it was kind of a tough one. You know, my best, highest probability fights, they were mostly canceled. The only one we had from the Patreon was about a 50% chance, and it was all in Allen taking on Strickland, which we got wrong. So, hey, maybe we'll come back to some higher probability numbers this time around. So 0-1 on the Patreon, not good overall, but we didn't have really high probability for what it's worth either. And then we had a lot of guys that were straddling that debut area. So the lack of statistics kind of didn't favor us, and then some other, calls like Felder didn't favor us, coming in with such a short camp despite his numbers looking good enough. I don't know, I'm making a lot of excuses here, but the fact of the matter is we just didn't perform, and we're going to try to correct that. But let's go over the event. Here's the show. All right, so we got to kick things off with Paul Felder here. He was not able to take out Rafael dos Anjos. He put on a valiant performance for a guy who got the notice on like 5 or 6 days, made weight, got his full paycheck, and he deserved every penny of it. They even got extra fight of the night money here. So really, hats off to Felder for putting in a good performance. He tried to bite down on the mouthpiece and take it to Dos Anjos at different points during the fight, but mostly this was Dos Anjos in cruise control. Dos Anjos had 6 takedowns over the course of the fight, and really it was those takedowns that control, just controlling the octagon in general. He kept pushing Felder back. Felder wasn't able to, stay in the middle or circle out all that much. He ended up on the cage a lot, on the ground. And then Dos Anjos had the edge on the ground just enough to basically have his way with Felder. He was never really close to shutting the door, I felt, Dos Anjos was, but he still controlled him. And also, we gotta this is a weird one. So it was a split decision, but this fight in no way, shape, or form should have been split. There was a horrible fight card out there that gave one of the cards to Felder, and even if you're Paul Felder, I'm sure he wouldn't vote for that one himself. This was definitely Dos Anjos' domination, but it was still a valiant effort out of Felder. He lost, a fight. Maybe he won a round, maybe round 2 or 3. I think it was 2. He probably had his best round in. But regardless, he put on a great effort, and I was happy to see the Irish drag him back. Will we see him again? He said he was retired last time. He came back for this one. Who knows? He's still fighting really high-level competition at a solid level, and so who knows? I'm always happy to see him behind the desk or in the cage. So hats off to Paul Felder, and even bigger props to Rafael dos Anjos, who got a great win at lightweight. So great performance by him as well. Moving on to the next one we got wrong. Abdul Razik Al Hassan is knocked out by Chaos Williams or Kalen Williams, 30 seconds. It was a hell of a shot. I mean, we've seen knockouts from guys like, Hamzat recently that are just flush. Obviously, Ngannou has all of them. Chaos Williams is on that list now, too. He threw just a great counter shot, caught Al Hassan right on the chin, and the guy was out. Before he hit the mat, honestly, the guy was out cold. So Al Hassan looked real good coming in, didn't make weight, which I don't know how the weight cut was for him. Maybe he did have an issue. Maybe he was a little bit more dehydrated than, although it's tough to say when you don't make weight, how dehydrated you are. Obviously, he tried. I don't know. He looks really big for the weight class at welter. Maybe we'll want to go up, but who knows? That's a lot. It's a big gap between 185 and 70 pounds, 15 pounds overall. So one we got wrong is what it is, and performance of the night money for Chaos Williams. So happy 50 G's. The next one, Ashley Yoder defeats Miranda Granger. This one here we actually did get wrong. We had picked Granger in this one. It was tight, but Yoder's takedowns, I think, are what cemented it, even though she was slightly outstruck. She did have all the submission attempts, and she did, I think, ultimately win this fight pretty handily, despite it being a little bit closer on the feet than I think Yoder would have liked. So she was able to, instill her will into this one and really get it to a place where she could control the action. And then in the next one here, we got wrong. This was the only one on our Patreon this week that was valid. We had All in Allen. He looked okay. Ended up being knocked out early on in the second round. Strickland he came forward. He was hunting down the pipe. There wasn't a whole lot of fanciness. He was just outdoing Allen. Allen didn't look comfortable in the pocket. He kept having to back up, circle around, and I didn't think his movement was necessarily trying to bait Strickland. It seemed like he had to, back away and stay away from the power, and Strickland did prove that by scoring a knockout early on in the second round. So hats off to this guy. He's got basically 2 wins in a couple of weeks, coming back from a motorcycle injury, hadn't fought since 2018, and now the guy looks determined to climb the ladder here. So I'll be happy to see what Strickland can do moving forward, and I'm sure Allen will bounce back. He's still a solid competitor, but just wasn't his night. And another one that, we actually got this one right. So Corey McKenna defeats Kay Hansen. Tight fight here. I mean, a lot of people said Hansen won. I'll take it because it was a win, obviously. But she was outstruck by 10 strikes, 57 to 67 in. She was also taken down twice. Now, I thought McKenna still put in some good damage for the strikes she did throw, but this one is tough. It certainly could have been a split decision or go entirely the other way. I don't know if this was a great call tonight. Certainly not as bad as saying Felder won against RDA, but still not the best call in my opinion. But again, works out to our advantage, so hey, I'll take it. Next one, Kanako Murata defeats Ronda Marcos. In this one, we had Murata. She looked amazing. Really solid competitor. Picked up a unanimous decision. The takedowns were there. Her submission attempts were there. I'm hoping to see more out of this Japanese athlete. I think she looked really solid, and I'm hoping to see more out of her soon. The next one here, Tony Gravely defeats Geraldo de Freitas. We had de Freitas in this one. He looked okay in the feet. He outstruck him 76 to 49, but those takedowns, Gravely picking up 7 of them, and I think that honestly is what changed the mind of at least 2 out of 3 judges coming away with that split decision. Gravely was just able to score takedowns when he needed to and cement rounds to pick up a win here over the 15 minutes. Tough fight. Could have honestly gone to Freitas. It's one of those things, we got one with McKenna. We got one maybe taken away from us with Freitas, and hey, it is what it is. Then moving on to the next one, Alex Morono defeats Rice McKee. I thought that McKee was going to bounce back well since his loss that he had with Hamzat, and he looked solid, but he was just ultimately outstruck. I mean, high output fight, 176 to 124. 3 takedowns for Morono obviously put him over the top here, in addition to his greater than 52 strikes greater than McKee. So great performance. We'll see Reese again. He's a young competitor. He definitely will be back in the game, but it was Morono's night. And then the last one we got correct. We started out the night well. I thought we were going to roll pretty well, but it just didn't happen for us. Dontel Mays defeats Roque Martinez. Unanimous decision. Tight fight. Mays did, I thought, a little more damage. Outstriking him just 59 to 58. So razor thin there. 1 takedown each, but I thought the control and everything really pointed towards Mays. It was a close fight. But I think Mays picked up the win. So like I said, 3-6 overall. Not my highest percentage night. Certainly not. So, like I said, the statistics were not on our side for some of them. The probabilities weren't that great, honestly, going in. When you get a Patreon guy that is going to be just about 50%, it's something you got to question how good the other fights were going to be. The other ones were in the 70s. Let's actually pull those up real quick. So the 2 other fights we had picked were Jose Quinones and Antonio Arroyo taking on Eric Anders. So the Quinones fight, I thought he was going to defeat Smolka. He ended up being a 78% favorite, and Arroyo a 75% favorite. Both those guys had good payouts too, with Arroyo being even money and Quinones being plus money. So had the fights taken place, I think we could have had a good night as far as the betting goes. Could have even pushed us over a little bit better with the percentages that we got right, but just was not in the cards for us. Those fights I'm sure will come back. We'll see what happens though. All right, so we got to move on. That's the great thing about this podcast, the great thing about the sport. You get to move on every week. We can put this, kind of horrible one behind us. We'll keep it on record, though, so we can track our overall accuracy. But we're going to put it behind us. We're going to look forward, and we're going to talk about UFC 255. All right, so on Saturday, we're going to have 2 title fights on the table. We are going to have both the ladies and men's 125-pound divisions up for grab, and the main event is going to be Devinson Figueiredo versus Alex Perez. So this is a really tough fight to call. Perez has looked good. He wouldn't be getting the title shot unless he looked this good. The only guy he lost to recently was Benavides. However, Devinson Figueiredo, 19-1. He had just kind of a rare loss, it seems, against Jussier Formiga. Since then, the guy has been on a clip. He's had 3 straight submission or knockout victories. He's been shutting the door on top competitors like Joseph Benavides, Tim Elliott, and then he had this decision over Pantoja. I think the Jussier Formiga loss was a total fluke. I think this guy, by all rights, should probably honestly be undefeated still, and I don't see Alex Perez giving him a problem. Now, with that being said, Perez is fighting well himself. He just has that one rare loss to Benavides. Other than that, this guy could practically be undefeated with his last loss before Benavides coming back in 2016 outside of the UFC, and this kid's only 28 years old. He's developed a lot more since then. Now, overall, I just got to give it to Benavides. I think he is a little bit more tenacious when it comes to the striking. I respect his grappling. I think those almost nullify each other. And I got to go with Devinson here. I mean, the guy is so talented. He's so explosive at 125 pounds. He is going to be the champion, I think, for a little while here. And as long as he makes weight, that is a caveat here, as long as he makes weight, I can't see any reason he won't be getting this one done. We are going with Devinson Figueiredo in the 125-pound contest. Now, in the next one here, really doesn't need me to say much about it. We're going to have basically the winning machine known as Valentina Shevchenko taking on Jennifer Maia. So, unlike the last fight, I think Figueiredo and Perez fairly close down the middle. I don't see this one going any other way but for Shevchenko. I mean, unless your name's Amanda Nunes, you don't beat her. Back in 2010, she lost to Liz Carmouche, but this is 10 years on. Other than that, only the ladies' GOAT has been able to defeat Shevchenko. She has 5 straight wins. Cachoeira, Jędrzejczyk, Carmouche, and Chookagian. I don't expect Maia, who's lost to Chookagian, lost to Carmouche, to honestly be getting wins here. She did look impressive against Joanne Calderwood, but JoJo isn't Valentina, and I honestly cannot see Valentina losing this one. Anything can happen. Maia, of course, has a puncher's chance, has the ability, is trained well down in shoot box, has 4 knockouts, has 5 submissions, but she's been knocked out once, she's been submitted once, and that is how Valentina gets it done most of the time. 6 knockouts and 7 submissions over 19 wins. I see her honestly putting this one away. The 5 rounds give her plenty of time to work, and if it isn't a knockout, it's going to be a submission for Valentina. I do not see the bullet dropping this one. I think she's got to be the lock of the night, which means maybe you take it with a grain of salt. But honestly, I can't see her losing this one. It's going to be a high probability one for sure. We're going with the bullet. All right, next one here is going to be an awesome fight because we're going to have Tim Means versus the domestic no, those are allegations. I'm sorry. We're going up Platinum Mike Perry. There's some bullshit with Mike Perry going on right now. If you haven't paid attention, there's some domestic violence allegations against him with his former wife or girlfriend. I can't remember exactly. And then obviously there's tape of him punching the guy at the bar. Mike Perry's got some problems lately, and honestly, I think he's going to continue to have problems even in the professional sphere because Tim Means, the Dirty Bird, is going to defeat Mike Perry. Mike Perry has struggled. He beat Mickey Gall, but other than that, lost to Neal, lost to Luque, lost to Cerrone. He's got to win in between those with Alex Oliveira, but I don't think he's going to be able to defeat the Dirty Bird. Dirty Bird looks so good against Loreno Starpoli. He also looks solid against Thiago Alves. He did get caught in a guillotine against Daniel Rodriguez, who will also be on this card a little bit later. And honestly, I think that Tim Means gets it done here. He's off and on. He hasn't been able to tie 2 in a row since back in 2016, but I think he's going to be able to do it against Mike Perry. For a guy who's 36 years of age, 19 knockouts, 5 submissions. He has the fight IQ. He's only been knocked out twice over his 12 losses. Perry only goes for knockouts, 11 over his 14 wins. And honestly, as long as the chin's there for Means, which most of the time through his career it has been, I think he's going to be able to honestly pick up a win here. Granted, keep in mind though, Nico Price did knock him out back in just 2019, so he was knocked out about a year and a half ago roughly, so it's something just to keep in mind that recently the chin has had some miles on it, and Mike Perry, we know he's got the hands of granite. He could exploit that. So we'll see how things play out for the Platinum one and for the Dirty Bird, but I'm going with the Dirty Bird. All right, back in quick succession, we have Caitlin Chookagian taking on Cynthia Calvillo. Now, I say quick because she last fought October 17th, 2020. So, there'd be 1 month to the day that I'm actually recording this right now. She got hit in the liver by Jessica Andrade and went down. I guess she wants to try to bounce back in this one right away. I don't know if that's a good idea necessarily to come back so soon, but she's going to be taking on Cynthia Calvillo, a Tiger Muay Thai product, so similar training background to Valentina and Antonia, who she did have success against. But I don't know how this one's going to work out for her, honestly, overall. I don't like the way she's bouncing back, and I really like Calvillo's balanced approach to MMA. Now, she's only 9-1, but bear in mind, Chikagian, even though we know her name a little bit better, is 14-4 herself, and it picks up a lot of decisions. She rarely shuts the door. 2 knockouts, 1 submission. We have a much higher finish rate on the side of Calvillo with 5 completions prior to judge's decision over her 9 wins. So the majority of them are going, being kept out of the judge's scorecard, rather. And I think that, honestly, Calvillo is going to be able to carry that forward here. Now, granted, she hasn't had a stoppage since 2018, but I think she could potentially put it on Chikagian here. But she has to get inside that large 5'9" frame. Chikagian can be a problem if you have trouble getting inside. So we'll see how things play out. If she can approach it like Andrade did, just as the little tank that she is, Calvillo can get it done, and she's going to be the pick on Saturday. All right, this next one here is super fun as well. Mauricio Shogun Rua, 38 years old, former Pride Grand Prix champion. It's going to make me sad when we can no longer refer to guys in the octagon when Bruce Buffer's going through the thing as former Grand Prix. We're getting to the end of the line here. Rua is certainly one of the last. But anyways, he's going to be taking on the Bear Jew, Paul Craig. And so in this one here, as much as Rua has looked good in his last few outings, right? We had the Tyson Pedro fight, the Antonio Nogueira fight. I think that Craig is going to be able to avenge his draw back in November of last year, okay, on the 16th. I think he's going to be able to avenge that draw and pick up a win here. Now, it was a draw. It was a split draw. And, I think, honestly, even though we've seen some good stuff out of Rua against Antonio Nogueira, that's an older gentleman, a guy that they have a lot of history with, and I think that Craig is going to be able to put it on him better than an old, broken, maybe I'd be a little harsh on Nogueira, but an older, not at his prime Nogueira. I think the Bear Jew just keeps getting better. Look at his great win against Gazmarad. Now, granted, Gazmarad did not have the fight IQ to put this fight in a position that he could take advantage of, whereas Rua is known for his fight IQ and his ability to get get stoppages, really, I should say. 21 knockouts over 27 wins. So, he's going up against a submission machine. We got a knockout machine. I think, honestly, Craig can neutralize the striking of Rua at this point in his career. So I'm going to go with the Bear Jew here. He's going to be the pick on Saturday. All right, very fun fight here. We got a couple 125-pounders in Brandon Moreno and Brandon Royval. So 2 Brandons in this one. Moreno, Baby Assassin is phenomenal, as is Royval on the ground. But honestly, I like Royval here. Both these guys are on phenomenal win streaks right now. Granted, we have the one draw in there for Moreno, but he looked great against Formiga. He looked great against Kai Kara France. The edge here, though, honestly, is the submission rate that we're getting out of Royval, though. He's stayed out of the judges' scorecards 4 times in a row here, 2 in LFA, 2 in the UFC, and I think he's going to be able to keep it going. He's been so dangerous on the ground, and despite the fact that Moreno is also dangerous on the ground, I think that Royval is going to be able to basically test the waters there, Moreno, and potentially catch him. He also, I think, has the striking there with at least 3 knockouts over his 12 wins, which gives him a higher knockout rate than Moreno. So I think the striking is there, and I think he has what it takes to challenge him on the ground. So I think, honestly, he'll be able to get this one done. We are going with Raw Dog Royval. All right, this next one here is from the Human Highlight Reel, probably having one of the best knockouts in UFC history. Joaquin Buckley taking on Jordan Wright. And in this one here, obviously everybody saw the knockout of Impa Kasanganay, right? This guy could pull something out of his ass if he has to. Let's not beat around the bush here. But I think Jordan Wright is the better, more well-rounded mixed martial artist training out of Jackson Wink. 6 knockouts, 5 submissions, 11-0. This guy has looked phenomenal. And granted, he's only fought in the UFC once, but it was such a quick stoppage that I think, honestly, it might be even a little more impressive than the fight he was having, what Buckley was doing with Kasanganay. I think that Wright knows how to go out and be dominant right away, and I don't know if we actually have that out of Buckley, who's been knocked out twice and had 1 decision loss. You've never seen adversity for Wright, so honestly, I have a hard time saying that he's going to have adversity against a guy that's on a little bit of a hype train, and I think the hype train's honestly going to get a little bit derailed. It's hard to string 2 knockouts like that together. I don't think he can do it, or, hey, maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe this guy is lightning in a bottle and he can catch it more than once, but I am going with the Beverly Hills Ninja, Jordan Wright. All right, the next one here, we're going to have the lesser Shevchenko. Hate to say it, but it's true. Antonina Shevchenko is taking on Ariana Lipski, the Queen of Violence. And in this one here, I'm going to stick with the Shevchenkos all night. Granted, Shevchenko has struggled a bit. Lost to Roxanne Modaffari, lost to Shikagian. I've also seen struggles out of Lipski, so honestly, it's a little bit of a toss-up there as far as, the abilities go, but I think Antonina training for this fight, coming into it, staying with Valentina is going to give her the edge in this one. She's definitely not as good as Valentina, but I think she has a solid skill set, nice Muay Thai, good training camp, and I think she'll be able to defeat Lipski, who has struggled at times. Granted, for what it's worth, Antonina does not always impress. She's certainly kind of a shell of her sister, and so this isn't 100%, but I do believe Antonina gets it done. We're going to Pantera Shevchenko to pick up a win in this one. All right, we brought him up earlier. We're going to have Daniel D-Rod going to be taking on Nicholas Locomotive Dalby. So, rare Danish fighter, honestly, in this one, taking on a solid 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu practitioner in D-Rod. So I'd mentioned him earlier. This guy had defeated Tim Means, yet he ends up lower on the card. I think, honestly, because he's fighting a name in Mike Perry. But D-Rod has looked so good. 3 wins in the UFC. Tim Means, which is a tough, tall order for anybody to walk into the UFC against. Gabriel Green and Dwight Grant, again, solid competitor. Now, Dalby had looked good coming in. Alex Oliveira did shut him down, but he picked up a quick loss against Jesse Ronson in the first round, and I don't know if he's going to be able to bounce back from that against a guy as good as Rodriguez. Rodriguez hasn't lost since 2017. He's been very active at 13-1. He's got great hands, trains over at 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu, so we know his ground game is solid as well with 4 submissions over his 13 wins. And so, honestly, I think that despite a little greater experience out of Dalby, I think D-Rod's going to be able to get it done. He's proved he can do it against vets. He's proved he can do it under the big lights, and he's going to prove it again on Saturday. We're going with Rodriguez. All right, last one here before we get to the debuts. We have Kyle Dockhouse taking on Dustin Stoltzfus. And in this one here, I'm going with Stoltzfus. He's, this guy is kind of a debuter, I guess I should probably say. But the only information we have from him is coming from the Dana White Contender Series, so just keep that in mind. But he looks so dominant. I think this was the slamming victory out of Stoltzfus. Yeah, it was. This guy is explosive, and we've seen Dockhouse struggle against guys like Brendan Allen. Has not been able to come into the UFC as hot as he came out of CFFC. So I think he struggled a little bit. Stoltzfus looked just crazy dominant as Dana White Contender Series bout. Granted, it is a borderline kind of debut. In fact, I really should put it with the debuts. But I think Stoltzfus is going to get a win here. He's the pick. All right, and then the last 2 here, we're going to have 2 debuts. We were going to have Alan Jouban take on Jared Night Train Gooden, and in this one, I think Gooden is going to get it done. You see Jouban struggle at times. He's getting up there at 37 years of age. He's 1-3 since 2017. He's also had a bit of a layoff for about a year and a half, so I'm not sure how he's going to bounce back in this one. I think his best days are behind him, if I'm honest, and I think that a guy like Jared Gooden coming into the UFC, picking up 3 straight stoppages in a row, is going to be able to get it done. He's going to be the pick in that one. And then we also have Louis Kosi taking on Sasha Palanikov. And in this one here, I like Kosi a little bit more. He was on the Dana White Contender Series, so like Stoltzfus, picked up a solid first-round knockout, shut the door very early. Whereas when we look over at Palanikov, he looks solid, but he's 5-1 in MMA. 5-2. They both have 7 fights under the belt. What the hell am I talking about? I just honestly like Kosei here a little bit more. It's a debut fight, so I'm going off of what I have, and I think he'll get it done. I liked him in his Dana White outing. Which, speaking of which, was tonight, so hats off to the people that did actually get some contracts tonight. I know this is going out a little bit later than usual. I ran into some stuff. I know I'm not later by the day, but normally this gets out about 6 p.m. It's going to be going up around 11 to midnight, so almost touching Wednesday. So I do apologize if you got this a little bit later, but thank you for hanging in there and listening anyways. So let's go over them one more time. We have Figueiredo, Shevchenko, Means, Calvillo, Craig, Rivera, Royval, Wright, Shevchenko, Rodriguez, Stoltzfus, Gooden, and Kose to round things out. So like I said earlier, we had kind of a rough week last week. We're hoping to bounce back pretty well in this one. Obviously, nothing's in stone, as we know, but I tried to do a little extra work. So actually, why these picks are coming out a little bit later. I tried to just kind of re-examine the models, try to make some small adjustments, let the system work a little bit more, and just try to improve things. I don't know if it'll be a lot better, but I am more confident in the fighters coming in and their stats. We have a lot of stalwarts out there. Fighters like Shevchenko certainly have a good background of information we can dig into to get good stats. So we're not dealing with a lot of debuts like last week, and so I ultimately do feel better about it. But as always, it's tough to predict the future, so we'll see how things go. Anyways, you can get in touch with the Fighting Spirit Podcast at fightingspiritpodcast@gmail.com. You also can get in touch with me on Twitter at MMAFightPicks01. Also, if you would like to support the show, you can reach out on our Patreon in the description box below and support the show at the dollar amount that makes the most sense to you. All right, looking forward, though, we are going to have a couple of events coming up. So on the 28th, the week of Thanksgiving, so the day after Black Friday, we're going to have Blades versus Lewis in Las Vegas, Nevada. Just 3 fights on there right now. Nothing too crazy to talk about, with just Miguel Baeza versus Takashi Sato and Sue Medjari taking Malcolm Gordon. That one, don't even know too much about. I think we saw Sue one other time in the UFC. Looks like we saw him twice. Fought Smolka and Sukumtat. He seems a little familiar, but we'll see how that one goes. And then the other one, we have Wu Yan versus Betch Kohea and Jack Hermanson and Kevin Holland. So these cards are still coming together. That'll be December 5th for that one. So just coming at us fast and furious. I would like to see a little bit more out there. Obviously, there's talk of some bigger fights coming. We could have Chandler versus Ferguson on the horizon. We also have Cater versus Holloway. That was announced today for January. There's Conor McGregor taking on Dustin Poirier. What could be for an interim lightweight title, it's not really clear at this time. Maybe a full-on lightweight title if Khabib really is retired. So there's a lot of interesting fights out there, and we're just going to keep on bringing the picks to you. So until I speak with you again next time, happy fight picking.